Hello vinyl community, Bradley here. Just have a couple albums I want to show this morning. Had a little snow last night, so did a little shoveling early this morning. So anyhow, both these albums I got off of Discogs, and this one, I don't know, I just kind of stumbled across it, I guess. I did not have any of this artist before. It's on Contemporary. It is Hampton Hawes. It's called FORE. And it's with Barney Kessel, Red Mitchell, Shelly Manne, and Hampton Hawes. This is a great, cool jazz cover here, you know. What could be more West Coast than this picture? And it's got the members of the band playing golf. FORE. This is an OJC pressing. I believe it's from the early 90s. And if you're not familiar with the OJC pressings, they are wonderful. They pressed a lot of the contemporary, reissued a lot of the contemporary. That is the label there, contemporary label. But these OJC pressings sound gorgeous. Which the original contemporary were recorded very nicely. So, I think I've named the musicians on here. This album was recorded in 1958 in Los Angeles. And all these musicians were West Coast musicians. Now this particular group, if you're familiar with the poll winners, which was Shelly Manne on drums, Barney Kessel guitar, and Ray Brown on bass, three-piece, it would be similar to this, except Hampton Hawes adds the piano to this. So it's got that wonderful contemporary sound to it. So I'll tell you a little bit about the history of Hampton Hawes, because I was not that familiar with Hampton Hawes. He was born in 1928. I think he died in 77 of a brain hemorrhage. From LA, he was self-taught on piano. His dad was a minister. After high school, he joined the Army, and he was a heroin user. So even during the Army, he continued using heroin, and which I will get to in a little bit here. Then after he got out of the Army, he recorded, like, there were 3 albums. They were called the Trio Sessions. It was Hampton Hawes, Red Mitchell on bass, and Chuck Thompson on drums. And at the time, they were considered the best sounding West Coast albums up to that date. So I think I may try to look around for 1 or 2 of those. Like I said, this was recorded in January of 1958. Well, later on in that year, he was arrested for heroin. And the feds wanted to make a deal with him to find out who his supplier was, and he did not want to go that route. So they sentenced him to 10 years in federal prison, which meant he wouldn't get out till 1968. Well, anyhow, he was in prison, and I remember reading, he said when John F. Kennedy was inaugurated and giving his speech, somehow he got it through his head that Kennedy would pardon him, or he would get Kennedy to pardon him. And actually, sure enough, just a couple months before JFK was shot, he pardoned Hampton Hawes. He was the second to the last person that JFK pardoned. So that's pretty interesting. And after I ordered this album, I heard that he had written an autobiography in the early 70s. So I thought I would get that also. I guess it's rather highly acclaimed for an autobiography. It's called Raise Up Off Me, the portrait of Hampton Hawes. Actually, I'm not done with the book. Probably half the way through it. There's Hampton. Very interesting book. On the back, it says a little line, a liner note. It says, "In eloquent and humorous language, Hampton Hawes tells of a life of suffering and redemption that reads like an improbable novel." It said, "It is profound and wise, without affection, matter-of-fact, honest, funny, courageous, often poignant, never self-pitying," which is, that pretty well describes what I'm reading in this book. Very interesting. It's an easy read, a short book, probably 180 pages. So that is very interesting. Like I said, this is classic West Coast cool jazz. He wrote one song on here. Red Mitchell wrote another one, and they've got standards on here. There's 7 songs. Most of them are like 5 or 6 minutes long. So very enjoyable music. I'm glad I got that. And I'm glad I got the book also. The other album, the last album I will show. I have had my eye on this one for a long time. I wanted more of an original press. It's an impulse. But it became clear to me that unless I wanted to shell out some really good money, I wasn't going to get an original. So this is a repress, probably in the late 70s or early 80s. I love this artist. It's the Artistry of Freddie Hubbard. It is on impulse. So it's very nicely recorded. I love all these impulse issues. And this is a gatefold. If I was going to get a repress, I wanted the original gatefold at least. And this one has it. Here's the shows some of the musicians. Got Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, Curtis Fuller on trombone, John Gilmore on tenor sax, Tommy Flanagan on piano, and Art Davis on bass, and Louis Hayes on drums. I like Freddie Hubbard. He's probably my favorite trumpet player. So I love this album. Beautiful sounding. And this was originally probably the 27th Impulse release, because the number is A-27. Right there. So, like I said, well, I guess I didn't say, this was recorded in 1962. and it was released the following year in March of '63. These musicians are fantastic. Fantastic sound. I love it. And as is typical with Impulse releases, the sound is excellent. Now this is playing in the background, so I can't show the label. It's the green ABC Impulse label. So whenever that was released. And this was the, I think the 6th album that Freddie had released. He was still a member of the Jazz Messengers at this time, but he released his own material also. And this, I think he had 2 releases on Impulse. This was the first one. So he was on Blue Note for like 4 records or whatever, 5. Released this on Impulse. Went back to Blue Note for a couple albums. Then he released another one on Impulse. So in the timeline of this falls in between Ready for Freddie and Hubtones. Both of those are on Blue Note. This is on Impulse. So this has got 5 songs on here. Like I said, 6-piece band. So you have Curtis Fuller. He plays that trombone, which I've said it before. I really like it when they have 3 horns in there. It just fills up the sound, opens up the possibilities for different arrangements for the songs. So Freddie wrote 3 of these songs on here, and also they do a version of Caravan by Duke Ellington, and also an awesome version of Summertime by Gershwin. So the new wave of jazz is on Impulse. Remember that. So I'm really happy I picked these 2 albums up. They are in very good shape, so they sound really good. So I think that's about all I have to say today. So I guess I'll watch the snow melt. We'll see you later. Goodbye.